fresh in the flesh. Funky fresh in the flesh.
What up, though? This B-Boy Reg, Funky Fresh in the Flesh podcast. I'm back with a special guest, Mr. Lamonte Hayes in the building.
My guy.
What's going on?
Oh, wait a minute. So I'm special?
Yeah.
My guy. My guy. Wait a minute. What podcast is this again?
Funky Fresh in the Flesh.
This is the podcast that got me hot in these streets, brother. So Funky Fresh is definitely in the flesh. You hear me? That's why I am here again.
Right. So when we was, last time you came on, you was with Sean P.
Yes.
And then we did the clip because it was important to me that people understood more about the business side of it. Mm-hmm. And one thing that a lot of people were attracted to was when you start talking about income taxes.
Exactly.
And a lot of artists just don't know that part of it. So,
well, here's what I was saying, and we can kind of go back.
Right.
I always like to be very transparent. We had those conversations. And first, you're always supposed to say, I'm not a tax professional. I'm not a CPA. Right. I'm just someone who pays taxes annually.
Right.
And had an experience maybe about a good 20, 25 years ago in reference to my taxes.
Right.
So just to kind of go back until then, it was a very prosperous year. Very, very, very.
Right.
And I tell people all the time, I come from a family where my father was a auto worker, right?
Okay.
At Ford, 38 years. My mother worked for the health department for 26 odd years, right?
Right.
Average Detroit household where we went to H&R Block.
Yeah.
Well,
so basic W-2 employees.
W-2 employee,
Right.
Fast forward, I have this phenomenal year.
Yeah.
Very, very phenomenal for somebody who was in his 20s. And I went to H&R Block to do my taxes. And again, this is at a time, we had fax machines, which, it's different now.
Right.
I didn't know what a 1099 was. I didn't know what a W-9 was. I didn't know any of that. And, just to kind of put it in context, I'll never forget this. This was the year that Allen Iverson actually came out with The Answer. Remember the shoe?
Right.
So I got a call from Reebok, one of my buddies, and we did a program. You probably remember back in the day. So, and I'll say it. I mean, they sent a check to my house for $150,000 to do the work. And that was just
promo work?
Yes, promo work for the shoe. So we had a bunch of stuff that we were doing.
Right.
And I didn't understand. I mean, I got the check, and I went to the bank, 06 Mile & Myers, with a little paper bag.
Right.
Because I'm thinking they're going to put it all in there. Again, that's how much I didn't understand about what this was. And I'll never forget, the branch manager took me to the back, and she's like, well, who are you? We got entered, because who is this kid? They didn't know, whatever. Right. And I went through a very process of learning just banking, large, transactions, things of that nature. Again, fast forward, very prosperous year. Other stuff that was going on, you probably remember we did like Sprite and other stuff that we were doing back then. And I just filed my tax with H&R Block. And about 6 to 8 months later, IRS came to my house.
Wow.
And they knocked on the door because they wanted to know who I was and how I had X, Y, and Z. And it had just became a big mess.
Right.
So again, fast forward, it probably took me about maybe 3 to 4 years to figure it all out and getting a tax attorney, which is different than an accountant, which we can talk about that later, to kind of get it all straight, you know what I mean? And ended up settling with the IRS, of several $100,000 of a tax bill.
Wow.
And I say all the time, they don't play. And they're very patient. They wait, but they're going to come see you.
Yeah.
So a lot of these young brothers, which are very just amazing musically and the way that they do business in 2024 and beyond.
Right.
But what I've learned, what they don't do is they don't file their taxes.
Yeah.
So they have all these wonderful things. They showcase it on the internet, which I have an issue with that. But that's the old school guy in me.
Right.
Because you're leaving evidence of you're buying all of these chains and cars and you're showing all of these things, but you haven't filed your taxes.
Right.
And a tax attorney told me, and I say it all the time, it is illegal to not file. It's not illegal to owe.
Right.
So you can owe those people the rest of your life.
Yeah, because they'll do payment arrangements and they'll keep letting the interest and penalties pile up.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So, and there are programs out there. It's just so much that, you can do to kind of help with the process.
Right.
But you got to get started. You can't walk around for years and years and years. of having all these Spotify plaques of 1 billion streams, and you ain't gave the man no money. You gotta give him something. So I say all that to say is that taxes are important. You know what I mean? You know, we think that it's not in this world of entrepreneurship that we have in this music business, because that's really what we are.
Right.
We're small business owners. You know, every artist, if you're putting a record up on the internet or if you have a podcast, you are getting revenue. You're a business owner.
Right.
So you have to abide by those rules. And the way that this whole thing is set up is actually financially and from a taxation perspective, it's beneficial that you utilize those business laws.
Right.
Because those things are actually more in your favor than you being
Then it is against you.
just against you. You know what I mean? So I just preach that a lot along with the records, you know, and just tell a lot of the young brothers who, you know, are able to go out here and do these wonderful things that they're doing musically. Because again, some of these young people today are doing things that we wish we could have done 15 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, from the way that they're able to create the music, get the music directed to the public, go out and make money with the music, all without somebody getting in the middle of their business. But they have to be business oriented too.
Right.
And be able to put a team around them to help them. Don't take what you got, because they can come take it.
It's like they have to at least understand the structure.
Yes.
And then hire the right people to put in that place.
Exactly.
So what I'm seeing is because a lot of like young guys I talk to, not even just the young guys, like guys, some people just come in with a hustle mentality, right? And they're like, I'm going to do this show. They paid me 10, 20,000 cash, right? But okay, maybe you're hiding that or you're not showing it on paper, but your streams, your all of that revenue is being accounted for and it's going directly into your account.
Absolutely.
So if you think the IRS don't know about it, they know they're just waiting to come get you, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, that makes sense.
Yeah. Again, everything, if you take it to the bank or if you put it on your Cash App or you put it on your Zelle, all of that is documented. Right. Look, I'm dating myself, like, so for real. Every little thing you do. Right. You know what I mean? Right. And for those that don't know, that was a group, you know, way back. But anyway, and I just, you know, my prayer is that with all the advancement of the artists and their artistry, is that they also become a little bit more, like you said, have that level of understanding, even if they don't do it. Find somebody. They know what's supposed to be done. Exactly. And then they can hire the right people. Yeah, and they can hire the right people. You know what I mean? So one thing I noticed, too, just being a business owner, being in the music business and everything, there's a point in time where if your finances are bad, it can impact your creative space. Absolutely. So let's say you got an artist, he's hot 2 or 3 albums in, then he get in IRS trouble. And then either he's going to be more creative out of survival mode because now he got to make it through this, or it's just going to take him under mentally. Right? And we've seen artists fall to that. Exactly. Like they get in the IRS debt and they never come back. Oh, yeah. They just never recover from that. Let me ask you, too, because there's always this debate between being independent versus a major label. And nowadays, you mentioned it, like kids can just, you know, years ago, you created a demo with the intention that you're going to shop your demo. Now it seems like there's no demo. It's just you create it, it goes straight to the internet. But one of the things we're noticing is people are like, well, do I actually need the machine of a major label? What is the machine and what are the parts of the machine that will make an artist more popular or possibly make them more money versus just being an independent artist? And is there still a need for a major label? I say absolutely. If you want to be a superstar, there are barriers that are set up that, you know, what people are calling being independent, it just doesn't happen. Right. You know, let's take Sexy for an example, right? Sexy Red. You know, a lot of people don't really understand what Gamma is. They don't understand who Larry Jackson is. Okay. See, and we can get to that in a minute, but what happened is that there was this energy that being signed to a label is not sexy anymore, that you want to be independent. Now, here's my only issue and challenge with that, is that there's no infrastructure, right? Right. So say you're an independent artist, right, and you want to put your record out. So you can go to TuneCore or CD Baby or whatever, right? You can sit in your home in your basement, type it up, and it'll be up tomorrow. Right. Okay, but what do you do after that? And who do you call? Right. There's nobody to call. And that's the way TuneCore and all those other places, they're set up to not give you infrastructure. Okay, right?
Okay.
So if you need somebody to tell you, okay, well, how do I get my information to the blogs, right? How do I get my music to do this? How do I do that?
Right.
How do I get on the radio station? Those are infrastructure things that, quote unquote, true independents don't have.
Right.
So I think the numbers were, when I wrote it up, because I did a post about this, and don't 100% quote me,
Right.
but it said like over like 28% of all of the music on Spotify has 0 plays.
Wow.
Think about that again.
So for every 100 songs, 28 of them aren't even getting
0.
played. Okay.
0. And the reason why is because there's no infrastructure. There's no one who has the understanding of how do we get to the play.
Right.
And see, the reality is that just continuously posting something or
Right.
listen to this and support that, that's not how this works.
Right.
First, again, as I said it before, because I think when I was here before, I said 100,000. Now we're
Yeah.
up to 160,000 per day.
Right.
So how do you get past those other 159,999 people
Right.
that came out yesterday? And then what about the ones for tomorrow?
Right.
And so, the other beauty of what I think is starting to reemerge is fundamentals. This is still a relationship business.
Right.
I tell people this all the time. Sometimes it's not about the music. It's just sometimes it's about the person who's delivering the message about the music.
Right.
That's it. So say you hot and you do X, Y, and Z, but then you automatically get signed to Epic. The music didn't change.
Yeah, it's the same.
It's the
album,
same.
Right. And we've seen that with artists where they have an independent project and maybe they have, 10 songs on it. They sign, they add 4 more songs, and it's the same.
It's the same thing.
Right.
So I'll give you an example, right? So, and I'm going to shout him out, right? So, Skilla Baby, the young brother from Detroit, right? I laugh and marvel because just the way that the young people just get, I'm like, hey, this a rock star? Okay, maybe I'm the old guy now, but so he has a record, right? And I remember seeing him do this record in the club, and it had been bubbling for a while, and he's a part of a major system, but now you turn on the radio, boop,
Yep.
now you hear it.
Yeah.
You hear it every hour on the hour.
Right.
And the real reality is that the record didn't change, right? It's because of who he's affiliated with, who is delivering his message, the infrastructure that he has.
Right.
And maybe a lot of people don't even know that Skilla Baby has infrastructure.
Right.
And it's more than just here in the city. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So this whole, I'm going to let this cat out the bag because it was said to me about him. They said, Lamont, he's going to be this generation's LL Cool J. I said, really? They say yes.
Wow.
And when they said that,
Wait a minute.
I'm just telling you. So when it happens, because, okay, keep going. These are some big, because Skilla Baby, people really, across the country, they really like this young man. You know what I mean? And I did notice, and I laughed because he was in the club with his shirt off, and I said, OMG.
Right.
That was LL Cool J.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you also understand that things recycle.
So when a person was telling you that, was it from a music standpoint or just his influence and the way he carried himself with interacting with people and the fans and stuff?
I think it was a combo of both. And again, this is a high level person in a major label.
Okay.
You know what I mean? We just kicking and having a conversation. It's like, no, that's Skilla Baby. That's gonna be LL. Watch.
Wow.
Okay. But again, it goes back to the infrastructure, and that's all it is. Skilla Baby was just as dope before than what he is now, because he hasn't changed.
Right.
But again, it goes back to the infrastructure, and that just only makes it an advantage of people that have that. So I tell people all the time, however you do it, you got to get help. You can't do it yourself.
Right.
And there are a lot of artists that have the mentality of, well, I could be independent, I could do this.
Right.
You know, and we're going to go into this. Why do I have to pay $125 to ASCAP to get a publishing account?
Right.
We're going to talk about that too.
Yep.
But I can just get this free account. You know what I mean? So
let me ask you this too while we're on the independent thing, because the message, most of the people that talk about I don't need a major label, and they're like, oh, I can go independent and sell, I don't know, 200,000 copies and make just as much as I would being on a major label. But I think people got to understand where that message is coming from and who's telling it. So I hear a lot of older artists say that as well, but they already have their fame and their core audience, right? So if you ask, like, take, for example, like a Redman or somebody like that, where they have a cult following, they can easily come out and sell 300,000 records just by dropping something, right? But a new artist probably don't have that fame or that clout yet. So I think I think younger artists need to pay attention as to where the message is coming from. Because once you have a certain amount of fame, your fans are going to follow you regardless of what label you're on.
And I was going to say, like, just take Red Meth, for example. You have to think about the years and how many promotional dollars that it took for them to even get to them to be on the Tom Jordan Morning Cruise, right?
Right.
That took years in the making just to be at that platform. And you have those people who have grown with you.
Right.
So, again, not to go back, but just to go back with Skilla, see, he's in a process of his fans are growing with him.
Right.
So the ones that are 16, 18, whatever they are now,
Right.
as long as he continues to keep producing music and putting content out and things of that nature, they're going to ride with him.
Right.
So you're absolutely correct. When you're starting at zero, when you're starting at making your first record or your first album,
Right.
you know, again, you need the infrastructure. You need to have someone who has the experience to help you with your checks and balances because, yeah, you can sell 200,000 or whatever it is and make this money,
Right.
but how much did it cost you to get to that? How many mistakes did you make to get to that point? How much money did you leave on the floor to get to that point?
Right.
And I think with any business, music, real estate, whatever, if you don't know what you're doing, that show thing can eat you alive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the same, again, with music is that there's so many things that, you know, you got to make sure things are correct. And I also believe, and this is me putting my militant hat on, is that we have to look at the entire landscape because, see, our genre of music has been sold that streaming is the way. And maybe it is, and maybe it's not.
Right.
But what other genre of music are showing you in real time, like Taylor Swift,
Yeah.
who sells out all of her physical product,
Right.
all of it, who sells out every little specialty item that they create, sells it all out. And I always ask, I say, okay, is a Taylor Swift fan just as, and there may be a demographic that may have more of a better financial space than maybe another urban artist, but
Right.
I think we still want to sell, we want to buy, we want to touch, we want to feel,
Right.
we want to read, and I always tell the story. And again, different genre, but I knew somebody that what they wanted for Christmas was an Adele CD.
Wow.
And you should have saw the way this person, I
right.
was like, with a CD? They was like, Lamont, I'm never going to play this. I'm just going to keep it. So I think we got to start to look at that as well.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I know you have enough experiences out that you know what Disc Makers is, right?
Right.
It's a waiting list. You just
Yeah.
can't call them up and say, I need a pressing tomorrow.
Right.
So-
Because that kind of explained the people going back to vinyl now.
Yeah, oh,
I mean,
Yeah, we didn't get to the vinyl part. Yes, absolutely.
I walked in the. I mean, I was shocked. Like, I heard a few independent artists we interviewed, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm gonna press up vinyl." Then a month later, somebody said, "Yeah, I'm gonna press up vinyl, but it's a waiting list because it's like 6 months or something."
Mm-hmm.
Then next thing I hear, Beyonce is doing vinyl,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, "Oh yeah, everybody's backed up now."
Mm-hmm.
And then I walked into Target one day. I'm like, wait a minute, they got vinyl on the shelves in Target.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a whole market just for the physical content now. And people aren't even buying record players like that or turntables that much.
So two things.
Right.
Is I have a younger nephew. He's 23.
Right.
That's all he listens to is vinyl.
Wow.
Because he went to Amazon or he went somewhere. And it's
Right.
not a 1200, but it was some nice little
Yeah.
turntable.
Right.
And what he said to me is I want to hear the music. And I said, thank you. And what he
Right.
was saying is that what you get from the DSPs is a compressed version of whatever record it is.
Right. Right.
So you're not hearing this, for those who want to hear the quality of the sound,
Right.
that's what you're getting from that, right?
Right.
So I said, okay, thank you, Jesus. Is that at least there's a generation that, you know, that understands that there's a quality
Right.
of when you properly mix the record. And we love, I'm going to shout out, rest in peace, my man, Wipeout, when he made Cheddar Boy Baby. He always used to tell me,
yeah.
I ain't mixing it. I'm just going to put, okay, brother. And,
Right,
and there's
right,
nothing wrong with
right,
that.
right.
Master P did it. I mean, so, but
Right.
there are some people that go through the process of really mastering and mixing
Right.
a project, a
They
record.
had that quality
And
sound.
they
yeah.
want that. You know what I mean? Another young lady I want to shout out, I think, because I think she's super dope. I don't know if you've heard of her, but her name is Charity, right?
Charity. Okay.
Kind of, I want to be careful I say this because I don't want to sound old, but it's a lot of soul in there, but it got some Detroit grit and all of that, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with her records, right? You could just sonically tell
Right.
that she went through, she just ain't record and put out, you know what I mean?
out,
Yeah,
right.
she went through a process. So I think all of those signs we got to look at it of and understand that, okay, if you got vinyl, like the same thing you said before, if you sell 10,000 pieces
Right.
at $15, that helps your annual, bro.
Right.
You know,
Right.
that don't mean you're going to be rich, but if
Right.
we're a business, we can't leave money
Right.
on the floor. And that's what I think a lot of people are doing and not embracing the physical in terms of us.
Okay.
Because another thing that I wanted to say, and again, this is all Googleable as well. There's a company called Luminate. Now, again, we're old enough to remember the sound scan and all that.
Yeah.
But Luminate has now started to monitor independent record stores around the country.
Wow.
So here's what that means.
You got to
See,
have your barcode.
You got all of those kind of things got to be back in
Yeah.
play, and somebody's making money
Right.
because they would not be monitoring it just like
Right.
SoundScan would unless there was money to be made.
Right.
So again, we have to look at certain things other than just the creative side, but the business side of what's happening in the landscape, and not be so quick to always go and run to Spotify.
Right.
I know that's always a thing, and not that you don't, but we can't. You know, that's again going back to the infrastructure
Right.
of somebody that's paying attention to what things are happening by the minute. That's
Right.
changing. To say, hey man, we're gonna put some of our budget and go press up 300 pieces of vinyl.
Right.
And we're gonna sign it and kiss it and put some perfume on it,
Right.
and be able to add that to our revenue stream,
Right.
so we can be in business to fight another day.
Yeah, I when I talk to people about like independence in any business versus being like with a major, I compare it to like having a mom and pop like deli or burger shop
Indeed.
versus being a McDonald's.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're giving McDonald's a cut, but they have a structure in place to where all you have to do is put the right people in. You're going to be profitable, and the system works, and it adapts over time to keep up with whatever the economy is. Independent, you're constantly figuring it out, and you're fighting.
Every day.
You're not getting your products at a discount.
Yes.
It's just an uphill battle.
Yep.
Now you can be an independent, and because McDonald's was originally independent, right? But do you have it in you to fight that fight?
Every day.
Yeah, so-
every day you wake up. So again, I always say about the majors is that it's not bad, but you
Right.
can't, if you don't have team, if you still don't have infrastructure, even when you're on a
Right.
label, because see, I think a lot of people just think when you're on the label and you just pass the ball and that's it. No.
No.
You still need to have your own squad that works in concert with them.
Okay.
You also need to be able to do things in order to make them react.
Right.
Because sometimes they don't act, right?
So, like an example of that would be like maybe based on your travels, you have a hot song, but it hasn't hit the radio and it
Exactly.
hasn't gotten the attention of the major label.
Exactly.
And you might say, okay, they don't want to shoot a video
Yes,
for it.
exactly.
Because we heard artists do this. I'm going to come out my own pocket
Yes.
to get this popping, and now the label jumps on board.
I'm gonna say
Yeah.
every day we've done 2 or 3. I'll hopefully I don't get in trouble for this, but there's no secret. Icewear Vezzo, that's my
Right.
guy, right? Chanel, that's my people. They had several situations they had to do the same thing.
Right.
He had a record called Up to Skull, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
In the beginning, they were not too enthused,
Right.
and he went out as an independent business owner that he is, and said,
Right.
okay, let's figure out how to get these guys to react off of this record.
Right.
So sometimes you have, most of the time you have to do that because, again, understanding what a major label is supposed to do, they're only supposed to amplify what's already there. That's it.
Right.
The days of them creating, in all actuality, they never created.
Right.
If you look at a major label, it always was, Motown was the independent.
Right.
Death Row was the independent. Puff was that was always the independent. We might have thought they were major, but they were not.
Right.
They still had to go to the major company to get amplified.
Right.
Yeah. It's
Right.
amplification.
Right.
Whether it's on TV, whether it's on X, Y, and Z, or whatever. And I used to always tell people, the reality is that in order to be amplified, you have to use an amplification device that's probably owned by a major corporation, whether that's radio or TV.
Right.
And the reality is that major corporations deal with major corporations.
Right.
Which is why you can't
Yeah.
call Apple.
Yeah.
You can't call Spotify and say, you can't do that. You have to go through an aggregator,
Okay.
a middleman. The label is the middleman.
Okay.
That's all this is.
Right.
And that's just the American way. That's how this is done. So although there are a lot of innovative, intuitive people, some of the stuff is basic, and once you understand that, and not to take it all the way to this level, but you got to go to the plug. You want to get the product, whatever it may be, you got to go to the plug. And again, it's nothing wrong with it if you have, and I say this to a few people all the time, keep me in the basement. You don't need to tell everybody I'm around.
Yeah.
Because if they know that I'm there, then they know, Lamonte know what the game is.
Right.
So there are a few people, in the city that I've kind of said, okay, go this way. Don't do that. Go this way. Go that way.
Right.
And the majority of the time it works out well. You know what I mean? But there's also, sometimes it's timing. And again, I'll use Vezzo as another example. We all know he was the first artist from Detroit, rap, to be signed to Motown.
Right.
Okay, it didn't work as they wanted it to because of a whole lot of different
timing,
stuff.
Yeah,
it's
the
just
timing was off.
So as now, he's gearing up for a new project. And that young man has the ability. I don't know if you've been seeing a lot of stuff, the RFK Jr. thing, there are probably other people that are ringing his phone.
Yeah.
He's becoming the young elder statesman of this generation of rap artists.
Right.
So he has the ability to be like a super independent guy.
Right.
And he's smart enough, you know what I mean?
Right.
So that's okay too. You know what I mean? And I tell him all the time, it's different levels to this, bro.
Right.
Everybody can't be Jay.
Yeah.
Everybody don't want to be Tech Nine.
Right.
Some people could be in the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so let's talk about we talked about the major. So everybody say this machine. If whether you're independent or on a major label, who should you have on your team? Like name those roles. Like we talk about major labels and they be like, oh, you got an A&R, this, and that. You're a manager, your road manager. Who should be the first three people an artist should hire? I'm hot. I'm in the studio. I'm getting some street buzz. Who should I look to hire first?
Well, I got to be selfish. I'll go with a promo guy.
Okay.
Right? You definitely
promo to get you out there.
Yeah, to get you out there.
Okay.
Whether it be, from a digital marketing space, which is still promotion, however you look at it. Whether it be a radio space,
right?
Unless your music is amplified,
right?
And this is I'm gonna put my old man hat on,
right?
It's great that you can sit up and do interviews all day and do talking, but this is still the music business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's one of my other things about the internet is I don't hear a lot of focus on the music. You know what I mean?
Right.
So but it's getting back to that. But you have to hear the music because that is really your number one product.
Okay.
That's your creation. It's
right.
the music. Because if you're a recording artist, that's your art. Cool. I always think you have to have some sort of, I'm going to be careful with this word. It could be a manager.
Okay.
It could be an assistant. It could be something that's in that role of administrative. Right?
Okay.
Because what managers do, I always say all the time, like when you go to the club, the first line of interaction with the customer is security. Am I right?
Yep.
Which is why you can't have them guys.
Yeah.
Same with your manager. You have to have a manager who's a personable person.
Okay.
Who maybe could take a phone call, get a phone call,
right,
and represent you in a proper way. Now,
right. So you can't. A lot of people have that good cop, bad cop dynamic. You can't have the manager that's a bad cop all the time, right?
I mean,
or do you need that bulldog as a manager?
I mean, and I also think you got to be careful. Is that the bulldog perception, especially in our genre of music, because it's smaller every day, right? So I think there's always a strategic way that things can get done that you don't have to be tough. Because here's the problem with us in the D.
Right.
And I probably shouldn't, but I am. But niggas are scared of us.
Yeah.
They think we killers. They think we murderers.
Right.
So sometimes we have to come with a softer hand, right?
Okay.
I'm guilty of it too. And we can talk about this. And he my man. We love him to death. But like when there was a challenge years ago with Kevin Lyles at Def Jam and me, right?
Yeah.
Niggas was like, oh, that's Lamonte kid. No, it's not like that.
Right.
It was just a disagreement amongst me and the opinion that he had.
Right.
And the brothers in Detroit were behind me and my stance. But what that experience taught me is that, you can get things done in a whole different way that you don't have to be a bulldog.
Right.
And another thing that I also learned, even with me, is that the goal is to get the task done. And I always talk about Bombshell. We love Bombshell. Shout out to Bombshell, one of the original I call them female MCs. You can talk about Smiley and Boss, but sometimes Bombshell gets lost, in my opinion, but that's okay.
Right.
But Bombshell always said about me was, she said, Lamont, what I love about you is that if you don't know the answer, you know somebody that does.
Right.
And that's the key. If I can't do it, I can call somebody that can. So that's what I mean about we're all human. Sometimes humans don't click.
Yeah.
You know? So somebody might be
You
like,
disagree.
yeah.
Right. Right.
So I'm going to call somebody, hey, get that done, whatever, and we good. So I think that person, I think promo, admin, manager, however you want to do it, and I do think you need to have somebody in legal or finance. Those are those three things.
All right.
And if nothing else, to be able to call them and use them as a resource. Because a lot of things of being able to amplify your message, being able to have someone that could take your direction as the artist, because in all actuality, the artist is still a boss.
Yeah.
The manager ain't the boss.
Right.
So sometimes, that takes a direction, and the manager or the admin be like, hey, don't go this way because it's a landmine over there. Right. So it has to be a two-way thing. And sometimes being that admin manager person is kind of like having a child, but it's still okay because it can go both ways. And that financial legal person can help you stay out of jail, pay your taxes, and make sure that you're good with your money.
Right. So do you think, because I've seen some interviews where you had an up-and-coming, or actually somewhat of an established independent artist, and they were working with an older manager. Do you advise, because the word that artists used was, this guy's a dinosaur.
Right.
Right? Because the manager was telling him, oh, you have to work radio, you have to go meet the DJs, build relationships. And the artist was saying to the fact, we don't need that no more. It's 2024. So do you think it's the young guys should get older managers that's been in the business 20 years or more, or should they go with somebody that only know the business now? Because there's a generation divide on how business is done. Or do you think the core of the business is the exact same, but you're just going about it a different way?
Well, I think it's a combo of the two. And I grabbed a chair because I had that conversation with many an artist. Well, Lamont, we don't need DJs. Why? And this hurt my heart. I was, and I'll say this. So I was at Views. Views, where you get the lamb chops.
Yeah.
So an artist came in there, and I was watching the artist. And again, maybe I'm just an old guy. I always just go say hi to the DJ. You ain't got to play my record. Just, what's up, man? How you doing?
Right.
And we were taught that was a human thing to do.
Yeah.
Right? So this artist just went in, and the DJ was shouting him out, boom, boom, boom. Dude sent somebody off to the DJ and said, hey, my man, I'm over here trying to have dinner. Can you not shout me out? In Views.
Wow.
Real talk. So what that taught me was that sometimes this is just about people and their whole personality traits.
Right.
Because if you're an artist, if you're recording your art and you are putting it out for people to consume, you should understand that it's almost like you're in campaign mode at all times, right?
Right.
That's what you're doing. You're putting yourself out there. So having this mentality of, I don't care if it's a DJ or whomever, you never know who's going to be able to carry your message that's going to really take you to the next step.
Right.
Because that one kid that you might have signed an autograph for, his uncle might be the head guy at Endeavor. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The head person or head talent at Live Nation. You never know.
Right.
So it doesn't take that amount of energy for you just to go say hello, to give something to the DJ, to do whatever,
Right.
and to say that it's new, yes and no. Because the reality is that we were having a YouTube conversation before we got started.
Right.
Only thing YouTube is a retail store. It's just digital.
Yeah.
So fundamentally, it's the same.
Okay.
So some of those fundamental principles, now, yes, there are technologies, like we were talking about the skip and this and that,
Right.
which is different than, you should have a light box and an end
Yeah.
cap. But the fundamental part is the same.
Right.
Now, I am also a fan of understanding that things are new and they're done differently. I always like to shout this dude out, too. Because I like to be on paper with this one. It's a kid named Lando, right? Okay. He has something called the Hip Hop Lab, and he got these artists. And he has, this one artist, Babytron, and all these other kind of young people, right? Yep. I don't know nothing about the music. Zero.
Right.
Some of the stuff, I'm like, But, man, I see just the way that this kid, Lando, the way he rolls this stuff out. You can tell his thought, the way he sets this up, the way he does his releases, the emails that I get. It's like, dude is he popping.
Right.
But see, what he don't know is that he's doing fundamentally what major labels do.
Right.
And maybe he do know or maybe he don't. So what I'm saying is that he got his new sauce,
Right.
but the fundamental is the same.
It's the same. Right.
Yeah,
Same structure.
that
same,
don't change.
Right.
So there is no young person on the planet creating music, just like when you're playing basketball.
Right.
I don't care what you're doing. You ain't doing nothing fundamentally that's different than what was done when the game was played.
Right.
So I think if you understand that and you respect some of the young people, because some old people don't. They be
Right.
hating, and I'm going to keep it 1,000. I was hating on Sexy. I was hating. On God, I was hating. And then one day I was in the car.
Was you hating on the music because you didn't like the musical content, or you was hating on the artistry, like overall, like the image
No, I was
and all of that?
honestly I was hating on the sexualization.
Okay.
And I think again for me,
Right.
you know, and I am a proud AARP card carrying member, right? So I'm going to look at things from a more mature parenting aspect,
Right.
and understanding like what that could do. But
Right.
the same in my generation, because I was in a
Yeah. It
strip
was
club.
Luke. Yeah.
No, I'll take it local.
Yeah.
All my life, I glamorized the streets. All I wanted to do was be the dope man. Jesse
Right.
James, Street Lords.
Yeah.
That's my man.
Right.
So we and I had this like, you know what, Lamont, you gotta let them. And then one day I started singing the songs out the blue. I had to call my man like, yo, dog, y'all got
Like
me,
they
man.
got you. Right.
Y'all got me, man. I'm just
Yeah.
in the car, just out of the blue. It wasn't no music. I'm just.
Right.
And then you go to Rolling Loud and you see 60,000 people rocking.
Right.
And he said, Lamont, I told you. I had to. Okay, you're right. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. But again, that's just me.
Right.
And the young 20-year-old, they gotta have their sexual time, I guess.
Yeah.
But that still don't mean I gotta, you know. And I have younger nieces and nephews. I say, okay,
Right.
now, you don't do this shit around me. Go on over there and do it.
Yeah.
And I also tell people the time when I went to the bar and I saw one of my nieces in there, I had to turn around. I said, oh,
Oh
Lord,
yeah, it's time to go. Hey, look, I went to a club one day. I seen a little kid I used to babysit. Like,
Right.
it was like my neighbor's kids. They was like younger or whatever. I'm like, man, I gotta get.
Yeah, I
out
gotta
of
get out of
here.
there. I gotta get out of there.
I
So,
went to a strip club one time. I seen this girl I used to date. I seen her little sister on the pole. That just blew my mind.
so
I
I
ain't
got-
been back since.
Yeah, I gotta go. Yeah.
Let me tell you a Sexy Red story. So I got a boy. We 50 plus or whatever. And he had this little young thing he messing with. So he got some balcony seats, and they was at a concert. Sexy Red was one of the artists, and he got this little young girl or whatever he kicking it with, and he came back. He was like, man, I was there with all them young motherfuckers, and he was like, but Sexy Red, he was like, her ass, she can perform. He was like, he was impressed that everybody there was rapping over their vocals. And he was like, she put on a real show, at least for that day. He was like, man, she was one of the only people actually rapping her songs all the way through and not doing part of the song, just doing this all day, right? So he was impressed by that. And I was like, damn, sometimes we look at an artist a certain way based on our biases, right? Or our generation. But I mean, there's a reason she is who she is.
And I'll say that too, but I also want
Right.
to add the same with Glorilla.
Yeah,
Right? The
yeah.
first record, okay, it was cool, but like now, and somebody said this to me and told me, Lamont, I'm gonna tell you why Glorilla's gonna be around for a very long time, because that Glow record,
Yeah.
that's my joint.
Yeah.
He said, but Lamont, you notice Glorilla, she ain't got no big butt. She don't have big all that. It's about her music.
Yep.
He said
Yep.
it's always been about her music.
Right.
All the other stuff is cool. But again, the switch over back to Sexy is that, and again, this is where a lot of people don't know, is the true infrastructure that's behind her.
Okay.
Again, the company Gamma, again, Larry Jackson, who came from Apple. He's a real record guy.
Okay.
It's a company that, with its inception, I think the initial SEC filing number that they had at their disposal was probably at about $3 billion.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So,
Right.
again, there are a lot of people that I know that are in that system. And that's what I say when I had to call some of the homies, like,
Yeah.
okay, y'all got
Yeah.
me. But again,
Right.
it's not as well known that she's on that. Because what they decided was the days of, if it has the logo on it, that's over.
Right.
Now it's the days of just the artist.
Right.
So we don't need to tell people that she's on Gamma. We don't need to tell, who cares?
Yeah, because I was telling, we was talking one time, and I was telling people when I was coming up, when I would go to Chantonique's and it'll be a new release. If it said Def Jam or Cold Chillin',
Yes.
I just brought it
All day.
I never heard the record or
All day.
nothing. So you was people were label conscious and they were fans of the label.
Yes.
So whatever you put out, you felt like you was getting that quality or better.
Exactly.
Right. But now you're saying like some labels, they're just saying, okay, we don't have to have our imprint on everything. We just need the money and we need to tie people to the artist.
Because even with Migos, even though quality control is a name a lot of people know,
Right.
but during the process of building like Yachty and Migos, it was about Migos and Yachty, and later on, I think those are the two premier artists of the structure at that time, and the rest of the artists kind of latched on as they started to promote and show the little logo or whatever. But in the beginning, they were focused 100% on music. That was it.
That
was
makes
it.
sense.
Yep.
Yep. Let me ask you something. So, here's a couple questions Butter wanted me to ask. What?
Shout to DJ Butter, my guy.
So we're seeing some AI technology coming in, even like with Drake using AI and this stuff. How do you see that impacting music, especially with hip hop? Or is it you think it's just going to be a fad that blow over, or you think more people are going to try to utilize it in creating songs?
I think they will, but I think still at the end of the day, man, is that, I say this all the time, man, we create the culture.
Right.
We've always done it. And when I say us, I mean us.
Right.
So you can interject all these other wonderful things into it. And yes, I think just like in any era, and you can go back to the 20s, every era they had their one and dones, right?
Yeah.
But I think what is, going to sustain this is just like in a real estate. If you don't have the proper foundation, you can't start with a roof and expect the building to stand, right?
Exactly.
So again, you might catch one or two crazy, little records that might pop off. But I think for that to be the norm, I don't think so. Because again, fundamentally, we have to create the art. Now, if we use it as a tool, but for it to be, I always tell people I'm not afraid of technology. Even in the automotive space, like with my dad, right?
Yeah.
So even though they had robots or whatever, but you still have to have people in there somewhere because you can't take people out of the equation.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
Right.
You know what I mean? The robots can't do everything.
Right.
They're going to do a lot, and it is going to make the wealth gap, the employment gap, it's going to make it small, absolutely.
Right.
But to think that it's going to totally take over, it's not possible.
No, right.
It's just not. Because you have to have a consumer of the product some kind of way to consume.
Right.
At least in America, the way this works is off consumption.
Right.
And I just don't see that being, something that's going to take over. And again, I don't know if I'm feeling the same energy in other genre of musics, right?
Right.
So just like an old school guy told me, and yes, a little bit, I'm a Spotify hater. If you understand our ancestors and what they went through in terms of sharecropping, right? I always remember growing up watching George Jefferson, how he talked about how his daddy was a sharecropper.
Right.
I never really understood what that meant. I kind of did, but I didn't. But if you really study it and understand it, that's what Spotify is. It's the modern day sharecropper. And I challenge people who see this, if you don't know what that is, just read it. Right. So I think the same thing even with the AI piece. It's part of that fundamental structure, but I don't think overall it doesn't work.
It does.
Because there are some people that do very well without Spotify or have very low participation from Spotify. So again, AI, Spotify, I don't know if you want to call them fads, but I do want to call it a part that is probably not as beneficial as sometimes it's made to be.
Right.
I don't believe it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. For so everything that's going on in music now, because you have a background with what was it, Uptown Records and MCA and all of that. Where do you see, like, do you ever see like another company starting like that, like black owned or whatever, coming up, like your Death Rows, your Bad Boys, or even a Def Jam? Do you see that being created now, or is it possible?
Yes. No.
Okay.
Again, like I said, even shouting the no, I can't say little. That's not respectful. The shout out to homie Lando, right? He has these group of collective young people,
Right.
and on the quiet, you know what I mean. I can see where, again, like I said, the major label system does not exist without people like him.
Okay.
Because he is the true producer of, and I know we keep using the word content or whatever, but it's music.
Right.
Right? So we can use a fancy name, but it's still music, right?
Right.
So I feel like he had 3 or 4 guys or 5 guys on his label that are all kind of doing their thing.
Right.
Even the same thing now, I think, with, and I might be messing this up a little bit. So you had a couple of brothers from the East Side, because I think it was Skilla Baby in the mix and a couple of other little young guys that eventually kind of, I don't know if it was Baby Money or however it was, but I think what you're saying is more of those guys sprouting up, but just doing something from a collective.
Right.
Yes, I think it's coming.
All right.
I think it's coming.
All right.
I do.
How do you feel about because I know the hottest thing right now is Drake and Kendrick, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think that's good for the culture?
So again, as an AA card carrying member, I think that's the stupidest fucking shit in the world.
For real?
I think it's dumb as hell. I think okay, so let's start. And I'm so glad you asked me this.
I want to say this too. This has to be the most this has to be the biggest pop culture rap battle or beef that I've seen. Because Jay and Nas wasn't getting Saturday Night Live skits and Middle America wasn't really talking about they would talk about the beefs like 50 and Ja Rule, but like they wasn't. It just wasn't as mainstream as we're seeing now. Why do you think
I was gonna say on TikTok, I saw middle school teachers in Nebraska, in Idaho, and their kids in class talking about Drake and Kendrick.
Drizzy.
What?
Right.
So again, for me, and this is from a black male perspective, I just don't like the. And I know we talk about rap battles, but when we start talking about people's grandparents having abortions, and I think Kendrick said he wanted Drake's granddad to whatever it was for him not to be born. I mean, I'm going to be on record with this. I'm glad it was nobody from Detroit.
Right.
Because it would have been some shooting and murdering long before. You know what I mean? And it just started to feel at a certain point like the only thing left is violence.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. And the past couple of days, there was some violence in Toronto, which had nothing to do with the Kendrick and those guys or whatever, from what I understand. This is in Canada. But the adversarial and it being sold to us, this is good for the culture. No, I don't think that's our culture.
Okay.
I don't think us, there's a lot of benefit, and we can go deeper into something else about us being adversarial against each other, about black men, and say what you want about Drake or whatever, but there's still some black in him, right?
Right.
He may be popular, but he still is considered to be an urban artist, right?
Right.
So I just didn't like that part, and it was more so about them going at each other than making records.
Okay.
Because if you really want to break it down, Drake was defeated years ago because Pusha T put a foot in him.
Right.
Let's keep it a buck.
Yeah.
And I am a Drake hater for, playing with your little wee-wee on the internet. I remember that, right? Yeah, you did. Maybe you didn't. But they said he was on Twitter supposedly sending some news to somebody and all that went around. I got a problem with that.
Right.
The fingernail and that. Yo, I don't, and and I'm going record with this. I called one of the homies. I said, well, where Wayne at on this? Lamont, Wayne ain't getting in that.
Yeah. Because
Wayne already know. This is silly.
Right.
This doesn't make sense. What are we doing this for?
Right.
And then going back again to the Spotify, some people are like, well, they're making a lot of money. No, they're not.
Nah, right.
They're not making.
Right.
Even if they made 10 billion streams off of it, that's still no money for a major label.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying?
Right.
So I don't know if I just saw any upside to it other than we are historically a society that wants to see two people go at each other. And I understand that. Boxing, football.
Right.
So from that perspective, but let's not act like this is going to uplift our culture by K-Dot murdering this guy from a artist perspective and all the things he said that really was a little out of pocket.
Yeah. So your stance is that it gets out of hand beyond just the record, the rap beat.
Absolutely.
I look at this like I didn't know that many people hated Drake, and I was thinking one day, I was like, damn, he's up there like with Vanilla Ice and MC Hammer, like where all the rappers hate you at once. Mm-hmm. And then it was just like seeing the back and forth. I did appreciate the response turnaround time because you remember like when Mo did LL Battle, you wouldn't hear a response record for like 6 months to a year. It would actually be on their next album. It wasn't like, oh, we just gonna drop a song the next day all the time, you know.
Wait, to be honest with you, even some of those Mo D records, I didn't know that. I just thought that they were just records.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, and maybe I missed the mark.
Right.
I don't know if I felt like we were that much in tune of it being a battle, because we were more in tune just to records.
Right.
You know what I mean? Which I thought, but again, also understand things are done faster. We get the information faster.
Right.
We get more. You get more of the artists.
They can record quicker. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have more people who have opinions about the record, which is my issue and challenge, because of a microphone, a lot of people who probably shouldn't have a microphone, they have it. Again, it's a lot of people that I'm not super fans of.
Right.
That have a voice that seem to be about creating chaos.
Yeah.
And they use that microphone to continuously create chaos.
Right.
And not to, again, now this is where the old and new are different, I believe, is that's not what this was for.
Exactly.
You know, a lot of these young guys are winning, and I think sometimes they don't know that they're winning. And if they knew that, then they wouldn't behave. And not that everybody got to be goody two-shoes, but it's like, yo, dog, you won.
Yeah.
You got the Rolls Royce. You got the this.
You got the house. You out the hood.
You won. And again, to put all of this in perspective, because I didn't believe my guy, Maynard Scales. And when he told me a few years back, he said, Lamont, you have to understand that the average median income in this country is $37,000 a year.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Come on, man.
Because when we started off talking about like the independent and major, I think artists need to hear that.
Yes.
Because you have artists out here, like I was speaking to one artist and they were saying like, yeah, I made this or whatever. And I think when he added it up, he was making about $300,000 a year. And I was like, dude, you're not like, you're not like Drake rich or Jay-Z rich or anything, but you have to consider, like, I know people that are like movie actors, you know what I'm saying? They're small, but they don't make that. Right.
And don't quote me, but that's probably about the top between 7 and 10% of this country.
You're in the top 10%.
Top 10%. Making 300.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think artists need to look at themselves. You have to be humble to some extent, right? You still want to be confident, have your little ego boost or whatever. But if you're doing numbers and you're making a living and better, and you're living above average, and you're not in the hood no more, then you have to kind of appreciate that. You have to appreciate it at some point along in your journey.
Listen, man. So, and again, we can go back in the day. So, Drunken Master, right?
Right.
Okay, 50 players deep, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
You know, and I know he wouldn't be mad if I said this, but he still has a very good relationship with Suge Knight. Right?
Yeah.
And they still speak all the time. All Suge's incarcerated. And I said, Dre, I need you to do me a favor. He said, what? I said, when you talk to Suge again, I want you to ask him, did he know that he won?
Right.
That was one of the most, and Suge's not the only one. There are several stories throughout history of you won, you made it.
Yeah.
And I looked at a photo the other day of Barry Gordy. If I was not mistaken, it's in his 90s. And even Smokey Robinson, I don't know what kind of water they drinking, but they super won. You know what I mean? It's like, those are the true goals of what this is to be old, with a lot of money, and just to be as healthy as you possibly can, instead of trying to go through a lot of the other pitfalls that come with, not just in the music game, but on some black man life stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, again, back to that 36,000, that's a real number.
Yeah. Yep.
That's what some people are really living.
The average household, the median household income, this is what everybody combined. It's like once you break 75,000, you're like, like middle class, considered middle class. So you think an artist going out making 300,000 in 6 or 8 months, they should be happy, right? So, yeah.
And again, I get it. I was,
right.
And again, even looking back in my own, even in the days, and I always had to give you so much credit.
Right.
Of, and this is documented too, of how you helped me buy my first home, right? And just understanding that process and having someone who's there to kind of say, and I don't know if you remember you said this, but I remember it was some things that I said that I wanted, and I remember you saying, and not maybe exactly like this, but it came to me like, okay, Lamont, you're not going to get everything that you want.
Right.
But just as long as you get the majority of what it is, you got to
Like
kind of go for that.
80% of it. Right,
yes.
right.
And I say, you know what? That does make sense.
Right.
And that was wisdom that helped
Right.
me through that particular process.
Yep.
I think you do the same thing with these records, with this music.
Right.
It's not going to be all what it is that you want. But
Right.
if you 80% there and you not making $37,000 a year, hey, man, you won. You're winning.
You think our culture, because the idea of survivor's remorse, right? I made it out. You feel like it's almost like you kind of like self-sabotaging yourself.
Yes.
I'm here, my friends are still there, and
Yes.
then all of a sudden you just feel like it's almost like you self-sabotage yourself into messing it all up.
Well,
Right.
again, always using the mirror. There was one time where, in my super hotness, I was offered some jobs to leave Detroit.
Right.
Now, I ain't going nowhere. This is my home. I'm never leaving, right?
Right.
So then, fast forward some years later, when it was time for me to get married, my wife said, I'm not coming to Detroit. You're going to come to New York.
Right.
And that's where we at. And for a long time, I kept saying, I don't want to go. I don't want to leave my friends. And I'll never get talking to my dad. And, probably shouldn't say it like this, but fuck them niggas.
Right.
Go.
Right.
You know what, old man? You right. I'm out.
Right. Because they'll still be here,
Yeah.
phone call away,
And-
airplane, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. So that was
Right.
one of the smartest things. Excuse me. And understanding that, in order for you to grow and even to help some of those,
Right.
because that is kind of what I try to do every day.
Yep.
How do we help those in the D?
Yep.
There's some people that call me, they know, oh, that's Lamont. He got me.
Yeah.
All day. Everybody know that. You know what I
Right.
mean? So you're actually helping yourself and you're able to help other people because you moved away, because you have those experiences and those relationships.
Right.
So when you need X, Y, and Z in here or there, it's a phone call. And
Right.
it's done. So
Cool.
so I experienced that, man. But again, you just got to, what they say, jump over the broom, man. Just keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna wrap it up. I'm here with Lamonte Hayes.
That's me.
How do people contact you?
What do they do?
Instagram.
Well, see, here's what I always like to tell everybody. What if Instagram or Meta decides to go down tomorrow?
Right.
I kind of don't want you to be my middleman, although I do have an Instagram.
Right.
But it's very simple. It's bwpmarketing.com. B as in
Okay.
boy, wpmarketing.com. So you say, Lamont, what's the BWP stand for?
I remember BWP for something else. You remember that group?
Sure was, but that was
Yeah.
bitches with problems.
Right.
No, that wasn't me.
Right.
No, but if you remember, Bombshell used to call me Big Willie back in the day.
Okay.
And when I got that big check, I had to come up with a company name. And I
Okay.
just came up with Big Willie Promotions.
Okay.
Yep.
Sweet.
And then I had to switch it because Tommy Mottola said, you can't be Big Willie. I said, you know what? I got to be BWP. So,
Right.
But anyway, bwpmarketing.com. Go on Instagram. Lamont, Lamonte. G is my middle name, Hayes.
Okay.
So it's Lamont G. Hayes on Instagram. And again, I'm here. The plan is to continuously to be here.
Right.
And part of our job, including this platform, is we're continuously helping the next generation.
Right.
Because now what we're doing is we're documenting, we're putting it in an archive for people to be able to go out later and digest.
Right.
Because that's what this is. That's why
Right.
this is important. And you got me hot out here. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You got me looking like new money. So I appreciate you on that because, again,
Right.
people saw the clip that you posted, I reposted.
Right.
I might have gained like 100 new followers. And now to
Okay.
me, followers are not a big deal. And as I
Right.
had to fuss at somebody, 5 of my followers will change your life. So I don't need hundreds of thousands of followers.
Right.
But I gained quite a few extra, and a few people was in my inbox like, well, how can I talk to you? So I want to definitely thank you and Butter for that, man, because, again, I think this is important.
Right.
Again, not just for us. A lot of people use this as a dopamine shot to me and my homie said. This
Yeah.
ain't about making me feel good or want to see X, Y, and Z. This is about how do we deliver the message that there is a better way, that we do have resources,
Right.
that you're not by yourself. And there's people that got you out here, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because some of us have had our days of being in a strip club and pouring champagne on the girls and using the corporate cards, those wonderful days. Shout out to
Right.
Mark Hicks. What's up, big homie?
Right.
You know what I mean? When we was able to do those. Definitely Carlton, Mr. 1738 back in the day, Clyburn. We know he's a community person now, but,
Right.
back in those days, we had a lot of fun. But But I think now we're really in the third quarter
Right.
of our lives.
Yep.
And what is it? It's really about a legacy thing.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
again, for that, man, I just want to thank you, brother.
I appreciate it.
Indeed.
Mr. Lamonte Hayes.
Indeed.
And Funky Fresh in the Flesh, and we out.
All right. Peace.
All right. Just in time.